Let's witness one of the greatest queen sacrifices in chess. Rashid Nezhmetdinov was playing with the white pieces and he starts the game with e4. His opponent Oleg Chernikov replies with c5, goes into a Sicilian defense. Knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4. We are seeing an open Sicilian now. Knight takes d4, g6. The game is going into an accelerated dragon variation. Knight to c3, bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, bishop c4, castles, bishop b3, knight g4. Black is allowing to capture his knight. The idea is if the queen captures the knight, then this knight on d4 would lose one of its defenders. Rashid captures the knight anyway. Queen takes knight takes knight, and now instead of getting the queen back, Rashid plays queen to h4. Well, what's the idea? Well, he's clearly intending to exchange his dark squared bishop, which is one of the key defenders in black's kingside territory. So queen to h4 followed by bishop to h6 would help white get rid of this dark squared bishop. And here his opponent played queen to a5, pinning the white knight to the white's king. Rashid castles and unpins the knight, and now his opponent was aware of this bishop exchange, but he wasn't very interested in exchanging this bishop. So he comes up with a great move, bishop to f6, attacking black's queen and asking to leave this file. And here in the game, Rashid almost took about 40 minutes. And why did he take so long? Because he wasn't interested in retreating his queen over here or here, and he wanted to exploit black's position because what he saw on the board was that black's couple of pieces were still undeveloped, and if you compare all of white's pieces, they are all active and developed. At least their rooks are connected, all of these minor pieces are well developed, the queen is out on the king side of the board. So Rashid thought that there must be an exceptional move that could turn the tables. So after thinking hard for straight 40 minutes and calculating all the variations, he comes up with the brilliant move, queen takes bishop. What's the idea? Well, white wants to get rid of the kingside defender, which was taking care of the dark squares around the king, as well as black is still behind in development. So that will give enough time to white to launch a deadly attack against black's king. So that is why queen takes bishop, sacrificing the queen. If pawn takes queen, then bishop takes knight with an attack on this weak pawn gives white a very good game. So therefore, since his knight was dying anyway, so his opponent thought, let me just disorient these pieces of white. So he played knight to e2 check. Rashid captured with his knight, and now pawn takes queen. Knight goes back to c3. Better place obviously would have been to get it on the f4 square, where it can put some pressure on black's king side, can also come to the d5 square to put more pressure over here or jump on these squares. So knight to f4 was slightly better over here, and now the opponent activated his rook on the semi-open file. Knight goes to d5, attacking the pawn. Chernikov obviously cannot make the mistake of capturing this pawn, otherwise he will simply lose the rook to knight f6 check, forking the black's pieces. King moves and the rook is gone. Therefore, Chernikov played rook to e6 over here in order to defend this pawn. But Rashid adds one more attacker, bishop to d4. Now two of white's pieces are attacking this weak pawn over here. Chernikov adds one more defender, king to g7, defending the pawn. And now Rashid activates the rook, rook a to d1. The idea is he wants to uplift the rook so that he can add more pressure to this weak pawn. His opponent played d6 in order to activate his bishop. Rook to d3, uplifting the rook, bishop to d7, and now rook to f3, putting more pressure on this weak pawn over here. Three of white's pieces are attacking this pawn. Chernikov plays bishop to b5, counter-attacking white's rook. Rashid is like, so what? If you attack my rook, I will attack your queen. So bishop to c3. Queen moves to d8, adding a third defender to this pawn, but that is useless because Rashid captures the pawn anyway. Knight takes f6, and obviously black cannot capture back, otherwise he will simply lose material after all of these exchanges. So therefore, black decided to play something else. So he played bishop to e2. But that's a blunder. Better move over here would have been to activate this other rook over here and try to get rid of this strong bishop which is eyeing black's king side. But he played bishop to e2. What sense does this make? This bishop is actually a cat pretending to be a tiger. Because by coming on the e2 square, what he's doing is he's attacking both our rooks. But if he really was interested in capturing our rook, he could have just directly captured it over here. Why is he coming to e2 and attacking both of these pieces? Maybe he's trying to get rid of this f3 rook over here, but Rashid doesn't give any time to him to capture his key attacking pieces because he starts a series of tactical and forcing moves. Knight takes h7 check, another sacrifice, and revealing a discovered attack from the bishop. If king captures knight, then rook can capture the pawn with a check. If king moves to h6, then bishop captures pawn, queen moves to e8, attacking the bishop. But Rashid can now play bishop d2 check. If we block the check with g5, then rook to f6 check, king moves to g7, and now bishop to c3, threatening to reveal a discovered check again. Rook to c8 with the aim to get rid of this strong bishop over here. But white can simply now get rid of this rook with bishop takes rook, queen takes bishop, rook to e1, bishop moves to g4, and Rashid is completely winning in this situation with a 4 points material advantage in the game. So therefore, the king did not capture the knight, but instead decided to go back to the g8 square. But since this bishop is strongly controlling this weakened dark squares around the king, Rashid decides to exploit this with the move rook to h3. His opponent played rook to e5, blocking this strong bishop's diagonal and offering an exchange of pieces. And that completely makes sense to give up some material if you want to get rid of one of the strongest attacking pieces of your opponent. So rook to e5 totally makes sense over here. But Rashid is not interested in giving up a strong bishop for this useless rook over here. He's like, I'm not a fool to exchange my strong bishop with your useless rook. So he plays f4, attacking the rook and asking him to unblock this diagonal for the bishop. His opponent was like, hello, I am not interested in this. Let me just start taking all of your pieces one by one and then I think I should be fine. So he starts some exchanges with bishop takes rook. King simply captures back. And now, since the opponent is not ready to move the rook, he activates his other rook with the move rook to c8 with an idea to sacrifice an exchange on the c3 square. But that wasn't good either. But Rashid is not interested in giving up his bishop over here. Because remember, the whole point of sacrificing his queen for the bishop was to weaken these dark squares around the king. And after that beautiful sacrifice, Rashid is not fool enough to give up this bishop for rook. So he plays bishop to d4. He's like, I'm not interested in any exchanges over here. Also, I will not leave this diagonal as well. So bishop to d4 by Rashid. And now his opponent played b5. He doesn't know what to do. He's like, he's not even capturing my rook. He doesn't want to exchange pieces over here. He's like, let my rook just sit over here. I'll try to do something else on the queen side of the board. But this move is not making any sense right now. Rashid now resumes his kingside attack with the move knight to g5, opening up the file for his rook, as well as double attacking the weak f7 pawn. Rook moves to c7 in order to defend this pawn. But that's not a good move because Rashid blast opens the position with bishop takes f7 check, rook takes f7, and now here I'll stop for a moment and I'll give you 10 seconds to think to find the next best move that Rashid played in the game. So what did you thought of? The obvious knight takes rook? Well, that just diffuses whole of white's attack because after king captures knight, pawn captures rook, pawn captures pawn, bishop captures pawn and queen to d1 check. Though white here is up in material by 2 points, but black's queen is too strong over here and can easily draw the game. So therefore, in order to keep the attack going, Rashid here played another great move, rook to h8 check. His opponent captured the rook and now knight takes f7 check. Well, that was the tactic that he used, forking the royal family. King moved to h7 and now knight takes queen, rook takes pawn, knight to c6, rook takes f4 check, king moves to e2, and here at this point of time, Oleg Chernikov resigned in the game. Well, you may ask why? Well, first of all, Rashid is up in material by 2 points. Secondly, if you look at black's pawn structure, he has 3 pawn islands, 1, 2 and 3, and whereas white has only 2 pawn islands and white's pawns are connected as compared to black's. Also, 2 pieces against a rook could prove to be very challenging for black, and that is why he resigned from the game. So how did Rashid convert a normal drawish game into a winning one? Well, it took him a bold sacrifice of his queen right in the early moves of the game. That fact that he was able to give up his queen in order to weaken the dark squares around the king, taking note of the fact that some of the pieces are still undeveloped, gave him all the attacking chances, the initiative and the advantage in the game. Like this video and subscribe to my channel if you learned something new today. And now my today's question is that have you ever done a bold queen sacrifice in your own games? Comment with a yes or a no and I'll see you in the next video.